welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by NetCertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. NetCertive talks shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
To the Art of Franchise Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Erin Martin. And as always, this episode is brought to you by NetCertive. Today, our guest is Adam Terranova, the Senior Director of Marketing at Authority Brands, where he oversees the trade brands. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Erin. Thanks for having me.
And to kick it off for our listeners, I'd love for you to provide a little bit more background on you and your current role at Authority Brands.
Background on me, that's such a loaded question, right? So I am pretty atypical, right? The way I kind of got there and the way I got into franchising and how I got here, everything just keeps building up and on itself. So I was atypical. I did high school, I did Marines, then I did college. My first job out of college was immediate, worked off selling radio stations and selling ads for a while. I got good at that. I moved up into radio, television, billboards, everything else like that through what's now iHeartMedia through a lot of years. Did that, managed markets, national campaigns, a lot of big franchise brands such as McDonald's were clients at different times, but also to car dealers, which I spend a lot of time talking about how their structure is and just learned a lot. From there, went off and did some digital ad agency stuff, believe it or not, in the day before ad exchanges prior to that. So that was very fun and hot, 18 months of my life in between there. Then I got a call one day from my wife, 5 degrees of separation. My wife worked with a guy who was best friends with the college roommate of a guy that was founding a franchise brand, and he needed a professional marketer. So 5 degrees of separation. This was a result of Undercover Boss, and the brand was Philly Pretzel Factory. So through that interview process, I ended up getting the job, went working at Philly Pretzel Factory for many, many years, going from, I want to say 70, 80 brands to 200 plus, and just scaling and building that brand from there. From there, I went to another franchise brand, still in food, Salad Works, which quickly became Wow Works, which was a platform holding company. After that, and we acquired different brands. And just as we acquired brands, would pause, cut, stoic face.
Yeah, you're good.
As we acquired brands, it would be as a platform holding company, as we acquired brands, we morphed them into our infrastructure. And that was a big part of my role there, which was like, hey, we're acquiring a new brand. Let's convert everything into our one wow way mindset, which is common in franchising, right? Because that's why people buy into franchises, for the support, for the structure. And that's how we support the franchisees. Then after about 6 or 7 years, came over to Authority Brands in 2024 in February to start running the trades brands programs, which was great. Really turned that around from a struggling industry to really, good growth this year, but we're by all means not done yet. But we just got a lot of infrastructure in place and how we converted the trades brands into where we're at now, which is we have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I love it. And first of all, thank you for your service. Love that.
You're welcome.
And also, we've had your CMO, Kenneth, on the show before, and he's talked about a lot of the awesome initiatives that you have going on, which I love the vision, the brass tacks, there's very tactical things you guys are doing to move the needle. So I'm curious, in your world for the trades brands, what are the big initiatives that you guys are focusing on for the year?
So for the trades brands this year, and listen, it starts at the top, right? So Kenneth, I've interviewed him in the past, he does give that broad vision to really make it happen in there. We moved from the operations team moved from Successware to Service Titan, and that gave us a foundational piece to really bring all the marketing assets together under one platform. right? Because what it comes down to, Aaron, is how easy is it for the franchisee to use and how does it work, right? And those are the key, that's that next level down question and mentality we have to stay focused on in order to support the franchisees. Does a franchisee want to log into 7, 8, 9 different dashboards and have to pick and choose which ones they want to go through? No, but how does all that come together is that next level down question. One of the bigger initiatives that we have for the year is how do we simplify everything for the franchisee into one place, into one piece? Because with Service Titan, the core product itself is we're going to get a job. We're going to run the job. We know how to price the job. We know how to build a job. But the beauty of it, to me, which we have to really start on, is how do we remarket the job? How do we generate the review? How do we do this? How do we do that? And just keep building on top of the core operating system that we have from there in the simplest of ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, how are you thinking about, from that marketing perspective, either plugging in other tools, whether it is, at the beginning of the journey, doing the campaigns and the marketing to that re-nurturing, review, follow up, satisfaction surveys, kind of that soup to nuts journey to
Yeah.
connect the dots?
So let's take it up and take it up a level and back a level, right? This all comes down to the MarTech, the marketing technology, the digital infrastructure that you have in place. It's the only way you can get through the questions you just asked, right? How
Hmm.
do you do it? I can get really tactical in there, but you want a system to be able to provide it. The more you can automate as a franchisor so they can stay focused on running their business and building their business, that's the key. That's where we want to be at. That's where we're going towards to come through there. Now, building digital infrastructure is hard, right? And what it takes is it takes like brand standards. It takes shared vision because in my experience, right, even going back to the Marines, there's nothing more powerful than a lot of individuals, all with different skills, different techniques, but everybody believes in the same shared vision. And when you get that, that is what's beautiful, right? To be able to get through there. And that's what makes a successful franchise company, a successful franchisor, and ultimately makes franchisees a lot of money. Now, there's a lot of hard conversations that happen during those times, but the will and the intent has to be towards standards, toward the shared vision, which is to make the franchisees as much money as possible and set them up for success. But MarTech is a big piece in that.
100%. And when I hear you say a lot of those things, I think the first thing that comes to mind to me is resources,
Yep.
time, money, people, like all those different pieces. And I think I did just see a study that said now all new franchisee owner agreements, those FDDs, are requiring digital infrastructure investments, whether it's more fees for the CRMs or whatever, BI tools, like all those core operating systems,
Mhm.
where in years past, there might be a marketing requirement, but not a digital infrastructure requirement. So I do see that as a page turning and a really good piece of what franchisors are doing moving forward, to know that that is such a critical piece and to get serious about it, as opposed to, I think a lot of people post COVID could dump some money into paid media, call that their digital strategy, and it worked until it didn't. And now we're at the point where everyone is either reevaluating their CRM, trying to build a BI tool, better automate and
Yep.
systematize all of their tools, just that digital infrastructure, exactly like you're talking about.
Oh, you nailed it on the head. And I'm really happy to hear. And I know of other franchisors that are working towards the same thing, but I'm really happy that you're seeing it from your seat, that more franchisors are going that way. Cause ultimately that is, the goal of franchising, to how do we support the franchisees because they're buying into our brands and our franchise company for couple of reasons. Level economics, the power of the brand, right? And this is what the brand equity, brand marketing, all those types of things that we want to get to, as well as the operational manual, the operation support that they're going to get from there. So I'm happy, really happy to hear that.
Yeah. And while we're talking high level, then I'm curious your take. You've been in the industry so long, you've seen how infrastructures have changed,
Mhm.
especially if you were here before the times of bad networks and have seen those come to fruition now. So I'm curious how you've seen and what your trends and take are in just AI and the changing search dynamics. There's so much there. And
Yeah.
so what do you think about when you have your franchisor hat on, and what you can do for your trade brand and kind of interpreting that?
Yeah, so that's one that's you can't just jump into AI. Aaron, I can't tell you how many calls I get a day or a week that's like, hey, we have AI, buy us. Just have AI doesn't mean it's the solution, right? One of the things you have to do as a marketer and have to do in business is understand the need. What do I need? And then, okay, what is the solution? Can AI enhance that solution? It's not AI is the solution. It is what is my need at that moment, right? So at the trades brands, we're testing out AI call centers. Why, right? Is the question. Why are we testing AI call centers? The easiest answer and the simplest answer is a franchisee going to pay a CSR to be there 24 hours a day? Let's just start with the basics. Nights, weekends, and after hours. Every call we get answered is an opportunity to be like, oh, not saying you have to be there in 30 minutes or less. It's not dominoes. It's, hey, how can we go out and get the call and start that customer journey and start the booking process? Because if we can do that, then we help our franchisees because they can come into, you know, a new job in the morning that they didn't know that they had. That's the opportunity. And that was the hole that was missing. And that's how AI voice in particular is going to solve that for us.
Yeah, that reminds me of you might not necessarily have a marketing problem, you might have a conversion or operations problem.
Absolutely.
So if your marketing is working, or if you have marketing out there, but it's not converting, you don't necessarily, don't change everything you're doing on the marketing front. Make sure you
Absolutely.
don't have the leaky funnel, all that jazz.
Without a doubt, right? And by definition, it's like, hey, where does marketing end? Where does operations start? Is always a key alignment part inside any good franchising organization. Marketing operations sometimes they're blended, sometimes it's very clear. Every brand I've worked with, I've seen it in so many different ways. But
Yeah.
one of the things to really focus on regarding AI in particular, because I know you want to get into search, right? It's the number one topic that's out there. AI searches. How do you look at AI? My question is simple. Through what lens do you want to look at AI, right? Do you want to look at AI search from the brand standpoint? Guess what? Totally different than looking at it through local organic, which is totally different than looking at it through map packs. What's the most important? And those are the things, and how do you tackle that all in one time is going to be the key, right? Because each one's going to be a little bit different. Local map packs, number one thing that we see is Google business profiles, whereas AI search, it's the on page signals.
Mm.
Other things that pop up through local organic is the behavior signals. How much are they clicking through the on-page signals on the branded website, the link signals, such as how strong is the website, and then opportunities that are out there being from a brand standpoint. Do you have basic things like a Wikipedia page, right? That give great signals. It's not about a conversion; it's about the signal, and that's the key of looking at AI in the future. It's about the signal, not about what the conversion is going to be at the moment, right? Right now, this playbook's already been written. If, see these gray hairs on the side, but it's like the playbook's already been written of when Google started to monetize search. So it's the same infrastructure build, the way I'm viewing it, and here at Authority Brands as we grow for the future. But as a brand marketer with a franchisee first focus, I have to combine all three of them together, right? So it's just like, hey, it starts with authority score on the website. It starts with your Google business profile signals and writing and what you're saying. It starts with the external links now out there in so many different places. It still comes back. One of the key signals, though, it still comes back to reviews. How many reviews have you had in the last 90 days? What's your review velocity? What's your review rating? What's your response rate? Things like that are going to be some of the biggest topics I think that will build everybody for the future. Um,
Yeah.
you know, as we get
What are
through.
people saying in the reviews as well?
Mhm.
And I think what you're getting at too, which I love, is the signals are basically that reverse engineering of consumer intent and what they're
Yes.
looking for. So, you just mentioned all those different channels or ways that someone could find a brand, and like within those, there's those different algorithms or inputs that they're looking at to try to figure out that consumer intent. And so you can actually reverse engineer that, just like it sounds like you've done, to figure out what the most important things are, which kind of demystifies, I think, a lot of that, what is happening behind the scenes with AI, with algorithms, with LLMs,
Mhm.
because it's not magic, it's not a black box. You can actually go into ChatGPT's code when doing queries to see, if you typed in who's the best cleanest, fastest residential cleaning service near me,
Yeah.
you can then look and see what they're querying to get a response. So if they're querying, best reviews in Littleton, Colorado with that's the cleanliest, then hey, you need to have really good reviews that triggers the best and cleanliness. So
Yep.
it's very easy to reverse engineer if you know what you're looking at and, like you're saying, can understand those signals, which it is a learning curve. It's not
Always.
simple. A lot of things in digital marketing are very complex, and it's hard to, just always be on top of every single digital trend and piece of knowledge, but you do have to understand a little to be dangerous enough to understand what to feed, how to inform your marketing strategy and program.
For sure. And then how do you take that and then convey it to franchisees? That's always the hardest part, right? Because also too, yeah, putting a franchisee first, there's a lot of digital marketing agencies out there that want to sell. Everybody has a friend that's a digital marketing person. And sometimes they give advice that's right for a non-franchise brand, a local small business, but it's not necessarily right for the brand and the power of the brand. And that reverts me back to what I was talking about. There's nothing better than a lot of individuals that work towards one shared vision. And that's where it's the messaging, the vision, the intent of keeping it simple and staying focused on the number one metric:
Yeah, I
cash,
love it.
right? Money. Job's done. Job's completed.
So again, back to your brands, I'm
Yeah.
curious, you mentioned focusing on call center conversions and, some of the stuff that you're doing there. What other big initiatives do you guys have that you've pinpointed as some of those big building blocks you're working on?
Wait, that's not enough?
Is that your number one then?
Everything's a number one, Aaron. It's like, hey, how fast can it get done? I mean, for us, it really comes down to how do we support, the website. My number one initiative this year is organic leads.
Okay. Yeah, you throw out website, that is a large another.
Yes. So if I'm going to bring it up a level, I'm going to talk about organic leads. How many organic leads can we generate this year? Now, that's a loaded question, right? So it's just like, I want to make sure we're focusing in on the right organic leads that can generate the most revenue for the franchisees. Because if you're out there and you're trying to sell look at all the leads I got. Great. How many of them are low profit margin versus high profit margin? What are we focusing on? And that's that next level down question that we have to constantly ask ourselves as marketers and as brand teams and as, overall marketers and franchisees, right? Like, what kind of leads do we need to focus in on? Because you get the right kind of leads, cash flow does not become a problem.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And as you say that, I basically pull up in my brain a decision framework that's like a quad chart of high profit, like I would say almost, I was about to say small spend, but you don't need a large amount of spend or marketing investment if you have that sweet spot of high conversion, high profitability, less competition. Like that is the quadrant of where you want to be targeting and hitting. It's not
But
just one thing. You don't want to be hitting the big competition, low margin, only way to win is pay to play, which is not even possible. So I see this like quad chart in my brain of how to go about that.
yeah, I ask it all the time, right? I'm constantly asking what's the next question, what's the next level down question that we're not getting answered, right? And when we talk about for the franchisee support, that's what we're looking at. What's the next level down?
Yeah. Okay. So getting inside your brain, when
Oh
you
boy.
talk about driving organic leads, what's the plan? Where are you looking at? What levers are you pulling? How are you going about that?
So the biggest thing is we're talking about like through the AI search, SEO, AEO, GEO are probably some of the biggest pieces that we get out there. Like we're exploring all sorts of different partnerships with everybody that gives great signals for it because it comes down to one thing, right? Google is still a player. And I want to get into Google and COVID in a little bit, like you brought up earlier. But it's how do you win? What is that next? You got to play in Google, right? But it's just,
Yeah.
we have to.
They're still dominant. They haven't gone anywhere, nor will they.
And they're not going to.
Yeah.
They're not going to. I went to a Google conference many, many moon ago, and there was a term that they used, and they drilled it into your heads. It was up in Manhattan. It was a Yext conference, actually. Micro moments.
I remember that one. They
Remember
did.
micro moments?
Sure do.
That has stuck with me for all the time because when you're playing on Google, or when you're competing in Google, because that's what you're doing, you have one micro moment to convince Google that what the intent the person's asking for is going to be delivered to, and do they have confidence in it in between there? So that micro moment is where we have to win at. How do we do that? Authority score through the website, better link citations, more backlink, all the terms that every marketer's throwing out there. But again, next level down question, let's make sure we get the right ones. So from like an AEO standpoint, GEO standpoint, we're looking at the links and really building that road to get inside of it, right?
Hmm.
AEO is answer engine optimization. We need to be able to answer the questions that are being put out there through the best ways through that. Now, there's a lot of secret sauce underneath it that I'm not going to get into, but then
Yeah.
generative means, hey, I'm paying attention to your search query of what your things is. So I'm going to try to provide you with the answer of the question I think you're asking. That's the harder one. But we pulled all of our SEO vendors together in the fall. And one of the things that we collectively came to, right? Because the way you win is through collaboration and working together and learning. What we came up with is, hey, every piece, every AEO strategy, GEO strategy, SEO strategy, it's all one umbrella as far as a digital infrastructure search strategy. How do you play in there? And because they're also intertwined, as much as you want to break them out, they live very closely, very intertwined together.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown of those two definitions as well. And then on the website front, I'm sure you've seen a lot change in your career as well. And so, is there any big trends you can share of things that you've seen change in terms of the best way to use location pages and city pages and highlighting services and really optimizing for that local conversion?
Such a good question, right? Yes, a lot has changed, and a lot has changed in the last 18 months. A lot has changed on the way you look at things from a brand down to the local mom and pop competitor, right? Service pages. If you think about this, let's say I have 500 franchisees and we all offer the same service. So we have one brand page and then 500 individual pages. Now Google has to crawl 500 pages. Are you getting unique content? No, everything being marked as do not index. We still get some negative marks off of that, off of, the research that I've been reading and seeing. So how do you do that? But also too, think about the queries. Is the authority score of that service page really an authority or is it fragmented, right? So what's happening now with local service pages and service pages in particular, think Humpty Dumpty. It used to be Humpty Dumpty fell off that wall and it was very fragmented because they wanted hyper local. Because if you think about Google over the years, it's been like brand first, then it went heavy local. Now we're in that hybrid stage, but I would say we're leaning a little bit more towards brand. We need that number one page to be the services provided in this brand, right? In food, it's got to be the menu because that's what they're coming there for you to look at, in between that. So there's a lot there to look at. So by pulling in the authority score, right? And then there's two lenses to look at it. Am I looking at it from a Google lens as far as like, hey, how much traffic's coming there? What's the conversion rates? What's it going to look at? Great metric to look at. But also too, how's the customer look at it? And I think there's a lot of ways to win in the future that we're revamping our websites for. So we get the best of both worlds. The consumer would go there and be like, oh, my local piece, but they don't realize that it's on a service page, a national service page. That's, I think, the way of the future in the next, 12 to 18 months coming out.
Yeah, we've
Local
been
service.
We've been seeing that as well. And one
Yeah.
thing I love about you guys is you do lead with data,
Yes.
trying to look at the story, look at results, just having that frame all time. So I'm curious too, back to almost our digital infrastructure conversation, how you guys are thinking about the analytics side. Do you guys have a BI tool that works with Service Titan? Or how are you looking at all of the different metrics right now?
So, I mean, obviously, we look at everything, right? From heat maps to Google Analytics, but there's one metric that matters the most. What is it, Aaron?
Those customers,
Cost conversions, right? How many did
money.
we convert as we go through that? But the answer is yes. and then we pull it all into a larger data lake that can, slice and dice it in different ways, as well as the operational metrics, as well as everything else like that. So that's what we're building towards.
Yeah, I think that's one big initiative that I've been seeing more marketers getting their arms around as well, is having everything pulled in, which I think then that's really important for knowing when you're evaluating whether you're going to build in-house, resource in-house, or outsource. You need to have a partner that can do integrations if outsourcing. If doing stuff in-house, you have to have the team that's knowledgeable enough on being able to do those type of builds,
Yep.
because you could spend years trying to set up a BI tool that works. And if you don't have the right person to be able to do it efficiently, you'll be spending a lot of time and money. So you need to have the right resources or the right partners to be able to truly have an integrated system.
You just summarized MBA 101, right? You need something, you buy it, you build it, or you partner.
Yep. Yeah. And I think people are realizing too now that they're getting serious about harnessing data, trying to get their arms around AI, and understanding that, again, I think we keep harping on this digital infrastructure piece, but that is what will either make you or break you at this point. You can
Yep.
get your arms around data, around AI, if you have those automations and kind of collective, centralized, and normalized data in one place. Otherwise, you're just living in a siloed and disjointed world.
You are absolutely correct. Because you think about it, and it always comes back to this. Have you seen the Thumbtack commercial? In summary, if you look at that commercial, what you see is how fast do the signals and the data come up to go through Alexa to be able to book a job. That's the key of the future. Everything was building about like the data, but how does it get applied locally? That's the next piece of it as we go through it, right? So if you talk about the history, hey, it started just brand search. Then it became local search. AI starting with brand AI. How does it get localized? That's the key to understand, and that's the key to win for the franchisees.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And the commercial and analogy. And I'm also curious, I know one thing that you've said too in the past is COVID made good and bad marketers, or maybe it's straight up COVID made bad marketers. So I'm curious, you mentioned COVID and Google, if you could expand on that and what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other professionally for a little while now. So yes, it's probably something that I've said. The context of it is kind of leads back to what you said early in the interview, right? Hey, let's just put more money in paid, and that's our digital strategy. And that happened, especially in COVID and depending in the industry. During COVID, I was in food, and I got to tell you, we scrapped for every penny we possibly could during that time, because not only if we didn't sell anything, people weren't going to work, product was being thrown out. Right. So it was a double whammy in the food industry versus the service industry. So we got really scrappy, really creative. And that's where at a great CMO called named Mark Mears that made the term penny profit for me, right? Everything got broken down to a penny, because that's what we work towards. Every little penny we could possibly get to be able to drive revenue for the franchisees is what our main focus was and stayed during that time. It was really, really, really hard. And we were working our butts off just to stay even, or just to make, help franchisees make payroll in between that. But that's a partnership between, and I give a lot of credit to WowWorks, between the franchise and the franchisors and how to get there. Coming into the service side, it was just like, oh yeah, we just keep spending money on Google. I'm like, is that really the digital strategy? Or what is part of the strategy? And I think where the service industry is and where it can go, we can never move away from Google. You've heard me say that here. I'll say it probably till the day I die. However, what you have to be able to make sure we understand is, how do we develop leads outside of Google? How do we develop leads without Google's help? And I think that as the service industry grows, constantly getting hit up, Adam, what are we doing for raising PPC prices? Let's develop strategies outside of Google. And I think that's going to be the key to the future in the service industry.
100. And yeah, the amount of times that I've heard, CPLs are rising, competition's rising, what do we do? It's like, well,
Yeah.
let's diversify.
What a novel concept, right? Like just like in the stock market for your retirement fund, is everything in one stock or do you buy an index fund? Do you buy multiples? All sorts of things you can relate to in life coming out of it. But you bring up like CPLs. There's a lot of metrics that are coming in that were key metrics 2 or 3 years ago that are going to be vanity metrics now moving forward. And you think about it, right? We have a new metric coming out, AI search impressions. Does that affect website traffic? Absolutely. How do you measure between the two? These are all the things of the evolution that we have to go through of understanding the brand, having the right brand infrastructure, having the right pieces out there that ultimately affect the franchisee and the cost per lead and the cost per conversion.
Yeah, and one thing I've heard you say a few times, which I love, is just keeping it simple for the franchisee. So I'm also curious, what do you guys do in terms of franchisee education, support? What does that communication program and interaction look like for you guys?
It's always evolving, right? So is the way I would answer that because I'm going to talk about myself. I've had franchisees that have MBAs. I've had franchisees that are psychologists. I've had franchisees that are seriously neurosurgeons. I've had franchisees that come from ad agencies. I've had franchisees that have a high school diploma or maybe was a truck driver or something. Such a diverse thing. So each one's going to have to be customized a little bit. But the way that we have the trade brands organized is we have a field team, field marketers, whose goal is to get deep into that market and understand that market to go through it. I focus on the brand side of like, how can I support them, right? Subservient leadership. What can I provide to you that's needed for the franchisee to win?
I love it. And yeah, do you guys, I'm just curious tactically, do you do monthly marketing webinars? You also had mentioned that vendor SEO summit, which I love that you pulled together all of the partners to brainstorm. I'm assuming that was at the corporate level, but did you disseminate anything down to franchisees? Kind of what does that look like?
So off of the SEO summit, what we agreed to, and there's a couple of layers to the SEO summit. So first layer was, hey, how do we win as a brand? Then the second layer is, what are you seeing that's working locally? Third layer of it down was, how do we make sure that vendor partner A, vendor partner B, C, D, and E, because they're all vendor partners, come through that we're all offering the same stuff, that we're not, remember how we talked about early on, it's all part of a search strategy, SEO, AEO, GEO. Guess what? Hey, what are you doing for AI? Nobody's charging an extra $1,000 a month for local AI. It's all part of the package. And that's what we got to for simplicity for the franchisee. So now we have vendor partner one, and totally making up numbers, wants
Yep.
to charge $500. That's great. Vendor partner two wants to charge $501. That's okay too. Vendor partner three wants to charge $499. All good. Then they can sell themselves. But as a brand focused digital infrastructure kind of person, I'm comfortable that franchisees are getting support in this box and that it has the opportunity to grow out and grow in to help them, to keep it simple and that we're all using the same terms in the same way.
Love that. Keeping it simple, one playbook, one vision.
Yeah.
So good.
We beat it up collectively together, right? Because we challenged everything got challenged. And that was the SEO summit was really great, I think, for the brand, for the trades brands. I think it was really good for authority brands. And I think it was really impactful for our vendor partners because they were so grateful for the voice, even for meeting, for lack of better words, and their competition. But we have such a big pool out there that's enough to get everybody into that shared vision of success.
Yeah, so good. And I know we're coming to time soon, but I was curious if there's anything you wish we would have touched on that I didn't ask or bring up that you wanted to touch on before we close out.
I mean, Aaron, I could sit here and talk to you for hours. You know that
I know,
we've done it
ditto.
before casually off camera, and I look forward to, continue always talking to you. My philosophies, authority brands, the trade brands, and just trying to help other brands in particular, right? Because every brand has a different life cycle where you're at in between it. And it's okay. As you set up the standards, as you set up the different pieces of it, utilize the franchise network. There's a lot of people around that will help and talk on the franchisor level in between there. So I'm lucky enough, I've had some really good mentors in my life that are other franchise marketers for other brands and other industries. If you're a brand growing, an emerging brand, grow your network and learn and understand and take it in pace, take it in scale, because as a infrastructure guy that grows. And I always like to say, I build roads. How fast you want to drive down it is up to you as the franchisee, right? But build the road the right way, know what's important to you, and just keep growing, and always evolve.
Love that. And absolutely the best part of the franchise community, peers, the networking, the opportunity to help mentor and provide advice. So 100%. And Adam, thank you so much for coming on to the Art of Franchise Marketing. And thanks to everyone who listened into another episode.
Aaron, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetCertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.